Hi everyone, this is Dr. Raquel Butler from Integrated Veterinary Therapeutics.
And Sophie Vandenberg from Equine Postulate. And we welcome you to the Equine Functional Posture Podcast, your ultimate source for insights into the influence of functional posture on biomechanics, health, and overall well-being of horses.
Whether you're a seasoned equestrian, an equine professional, or simply a horse enthusiast, this podcast is designed to help you understand the critical aspects of functional posture.
Tune in each week as we discuss practical tips, delve into expert interviews, and explore the latest research in the impact of functional posture on equine anatomy, physiology, movement, and more.
Let's create a world where we empower our horses to be in a mental, emotional, and physical balance. Hi everyone, welcome to today's podcast. We're talking about the liberty connection. And this is an area that it really excites me because I think it can create a lot of fun with your horse. How are you today, Soph?
I'm going very well. Yes, as we've talked about this topic before, we've both have a lot of examples where we've seen things that we've really admired and times that we've admired things and then decided that we are being somewhat directive or oppressive when we're trying to use liberty as opposed to pressure. So it's going to be interesting to talk about.
Yeah, like we looked up like the Oxford definition of liberty, and it said the power or scope to act as one pleases, and the state of being free within society from oppressive restrictions imposed by authority on one's way of life, behavior, or political views. Obviously, the political views part doesn't really matter for the horses, but the state of being free and the power or scope to act as one pleases. I've often looked at liberty sessions and wondered, does the horse actually have a choice in those sessions? Or, it can look very impressive but have they just been trained the same way that we train any other thing with them, in any other way, except that they're not on a lead, and don't have gear on them, but there can still be a lot of pressure utilized to create the desired response. So just because a horse runs back to somebody, it doesn't mean that it's an enjoyable experience for the horse. And yeah, I guess what I've been thinking about lately, because I've not been able to ride, I've not been able to do much because of some health stuff. So, and I've achieved a lot with Jelly in terms of like helping him with his posture and um, understanding his body and working with him in that way. And now I want to actually create fun for him and play. And I've realized that he actually finds this liberty quite fun because with the liberty I'm doing, I'm using treats, and so he thinks that this is fun. But it's really made me question fun for horses. Like, how do we recognize that it's actually an engaging, interesting session for the horse? And I remember after my first session with it, I went home and then I started practicing in the round yard. And then I got halfway through the session and I was asking him to lift up his legs. And I thought, and he was like, meh, just looking a bit grumpy at me. And I thought, this is not fun anymore. Like, this is not what I want Liberty to be. This is training now. And I don't want it to be like that. Like, I want him to learn the things, but still be able to be engaged and also be able to leave and be able to give me feedback on that. So yeah, I think we often get caught in a way of thinking and we think about stuff in a certain way and go, oh, like Liberty, it's amazing. I want to do that with my horse. But then we can really question it a bit further and and really explore it a bit further.
Definitely. And of course, always us coming back to posture, you can also look at how you're influencing your horse posturally still. So just the fact that it's possible to ask for physically inappropriate work, things that your horse isn't conditioned for, both in the context of just plain liberty work, just as if as you do in everyday work, as you're lunging your horse, how is the horse lunging? How are things going around? But also when you do things like train tricks and things like that at liberty, are you really doing it with physical awareness and posture in mind? So, are we setting our horses up with the right level of control and core strength and stability before we ask them to do them? Just like with all the other stuff that we do, if you take a dressage horse through the ranks without ever doing liberty, there's the understanding and the consensus that you still have to build strength and good posture as you go through the system. That also applies to if you're going to do it at liberty. And I remember myself being, it was many years ago, my first introduction to liberty was seeing somebody in a very large indoor arena doing a demonstration, um, and they were using a whip, and they had brought their horses, let them free in the arena, stood in the center, and were cracking the whip to create pressure to get them to come back and circle around them, and giving the explanation that, the horse is free away from them to do what they want. And then when you crack the whip, they don't really like that. So they come back and they do something a bit nicer, which is to go around them in a circle. And I was very impressed by that. I thought that was very cool. I certainly hadn't done that myself, and it looked very impressive. It was a beautiful horse. But I do remember. So this is funny. I remember thinking at the time, oh, that looked really flashy. But she had tossed her head and put her ears back when he cracked the whip. And and I understand now it's because she didn't like it. It was
Yeah, she
unpleasant.
felt like there was pressure that to come back.
Yes. And she had to be basically under a form of duress,
Yeah.
realistically, to come back, which interferes with the state of being free within society from oppressive restriction imposed by authority on one's way of life and behavior. So that in itself, and you have some great examples about really good forms of liberty that you've seen and have with trainers.
Yeah.
So that are different, but I remember being very impressed by that at the time, but now I understand that just what it is, what it is, whether it's good or bad, it just is. It wasn't simply because they wanted to be there. It was because it was uncomfortable to not be there.
Yeah. Yeah, and so, last week I was at a clinic with Mel and I took Jelly and I didn't have much energy to to do much, but I said, my aim from the sessions was just to create some joy and some fun. Um, and we're in it was a very big arena. And so Jelly has a lot of choice to not come. And I didn't have much energy to chase him either. So it was like he either wants to be with me or he doesn't. And so, one of the things that so I was with Mel Fleming and she has a clinic called Liberating at Liberty. And it's a very structured way of developing liberty without pressure. And so, she's using her body positioning, her body language, to create draw and like draw the horse to you, to create curiosity and interest from the horse. And so the horse is not coming to you because they feel under pressure away from you. And I think that often that's what liberty is. Like the horse is being pressured away from the person. And then when they come to the person, there's either the reward of the release of pressure or perhaps the reward of a treat or, you know, reward of relaxation. But with Mel's kind of form of training, if they walk away from you, you observe and you go, okay, like they've walked away from me, I'm not that interesting, or they're worried about something, they're not present here with me. And then you create some curiosity like behind them where it's more difficult for them to see, like you might flick up the sand a bit or tap your leg or tap your boot or make a little bit of a noise, not to frighten them, but for them just to think, oh, hey, what are you doing back there? Actually, I want to come investigate that. And so it's a very different way to some. I've also trained with Kim from Heartland Equestrian, and hers is also like very freedom based. Like the horse is allowed to express themselves, leave, go up the other end of the arena. Um, and there's no pressure created because they did that. It's like, okay, well, like for whatever reason, we weren't interesting enough for them to want to stay. Like they're stressed about the thing or whatever. So and also it's then making the experience that they have with you, like I said, interesting enough, positive enough that they're like, yeah, I think I want to stay. What else do we have to do here? And some horses will create their own games. Like there was a ball in the arena, and I don't know, Jelly's not historically been that brave. But when he saw the ball, he just like went over there. Like I haven't worked with him with a ball. Maybe he did it before at Pony Club or something. I don't know. But he was like, "Oh, what is that?" And he walked over. And then when I was like kicking the ball, like he was really interested in it. And it created a sense of like fun and play for him. It wasn't about me training him to like kick the ball or chase the ball. It was like, well, I was training him to follow the ball, but it wasn't, it was also using his curiosity and then not doing it to the point that he lost interest and it didn't become fun anymore. And that's also what Kim does too, is like she changes things all the time. So they're like, we'll do some high energy stuff where they're like cantering around, and then we'll bring it back down and do it really low energy where they're really with you and thinking about themselves and um, and keep it like she uses obstacles so that we can create, well, it just keeps it interesting. And it's funny how the horses create their own choices. Like, I've watched Ellie and Jelly be in a like little obstacle corridor thing, and they're like, what if I backed up here? Like, what if I didn't go over this obstacle and I went around it? Like, what if I stopped? What if I just left? Like, they're like free to do whatever they like, and then they're like, I'm going to choose to go over that obstacle all by myself. So it's really interesting to see horses where they have that chance to express themselves and like they're naturally curious creatures and we
So
really don't
curious.
foster that. Like
Yeah.
in our training, we just don't foster that curiosity. Like when we're riding them, we're like, okay, we're doing this now, we're jumping now, where you're gonna learn to accept this thing that we're doing, go through this gate or accept the gate being there or accept, you know, what going over the bridge, you're going to accept it instead of being like, use your curiosity and explore that bridge and then decide if you want to go over it. And then I just find that it just creates such a positive experience for them to explore any new things, and it's very cool.
Definitely. And I suppose it comes back a little bit. We had an episode on intentional postural rehabilitation
And play, we
and
had one on play as well.
one
Yeah.
on play. And of course, then we also one on the foal training. I was just thinking, as you're saying that, I was really thinking in my head about a
Um,
very sweet example where sometimes I look out when I'm handling foals and I'll see that they have explored something very funny. Like there's these big tire drums that they eat out of. There's quite a few mares and foals in a yard, and I'll look out and somebody's just put their two front legs over the edge of the tires and they're really quite tall and they're up in there and they're just kind of like, oh, I just wanted to try. I just wanted to see what that felt like. Or sometimes they just want to knock the water drums over and I look out and they have the two front feet in a half blue drum, just like I just wanted to try. And then
yeah,
they're
I
just
just
like,
feel
okay, I'm done. And they just hop out and go away. But they were curious enough to try and go and see. I mean, they see every inch of the yard. They want to try everything. But it sort of ties it all together. Like you're using curiosity and you're trying to be intentional about the way that you do things to meet their needs and say what interests you, not what makes you
Mm.
stay. You know, it's worth it for you to be here. And you can have when you're fostering that kind of connection with you, connection with themselves, and the acknowledgement of their curiosity, you're much better able to bring them into themselves to work with their posture. Um, and that's probably been the case for you with Jelly. Like he's at the point where he's very good at being able to like stay in himself and he doesn't lose himself, even when sometimes you've got some food out, because he's done a lot of work thinking about his body and he's comfortable being there. And so that's a space that we can make a lot of benefit for them. And so when like it's less focused on the task outcome and more about what their experience is. So saying, just coming back to how are you doing it, not did you just get it done?
Yeah, I think that's a really important one that, often we can get quite focused on the outcome and go, okay, like I want the horse to pick up their front leg, and that's, you know, going to be the outcome of that. But then in doing that, they fall in a bad posture, they create brace and tension, um, if they physically can't balance, then they get a bit, feel a bit unstable or unsafe. And so we need to look at that as a whole experience, like from the beginning. And maybe the first steps is they just shift their weight. They don't pick up the leg. Like you just test, can they shift their weight? Like that's such a valuable, powerful postural exercise. And it builds confidence in the horse to be able to shift their weight, like you do with the foals. So we have to ask ourselves with any exercise, but we're obviously talking about liberty today, is like what is the benefit of doing this for the horse? Like are we just trying to achieve an outcome, or are we really mindful about their experience? Like what's their facial expressions? If they want to leave, allowing them to leave, because that gives us a heap of feedback. If we're doing something and the horse is like, actually, I think I'm just going to go over here and explore over here. That's like, okay, the thing that you were asking was confusing, too hard, not interesting. You had too much pressure, your posture was bad, your energy was bad. Like, who could be any of those things, but rather than just going and saying, hey, you, come stand back here, we can actually reflect and go, all right, I need to change something here to make it a better experience for my horse.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's very powerful when you actually just step back and say, with anything you do with your horse, but like, what is the benefit of this for my horse? Like, truly, if I'm in my horse's body, if I'm in my horse's mind, as a prey animal who values safety, balance, and stability, um, curiosity, you know, what truly is the benefit for them, not for us, like for them.
Why are you really doing it? And there are good examples, definitely. You can create connection. You can enhance their horse's awareness of their body. We were talking about one person we've seen who has a fantastic connection with their horse, and they do things with awareness and precision, but relaxation at the same time, and that would be a dream, you know. And you can also um, you can play. Like, why are you doing it? It sort of wraps into it feels like there's quite a few, it's a little bit multifaceted. Like we're talking about horses that can um, have a positive experience and also be working on their posture. And so we've also discussed the fact that sometimes it feels like, and so I have less experience with liberty, and so the interpretation that you find sometimes, and this might be the same if if you're listening, that it feels like you're doing Liberty well and are training it well, that the whole system has been done at Liberty. So it feels like somebody has gone out and is so good at Liberty training that they've managed to achieve everything, but it's not likely, and I know you've said that Mel, I can't remember exactly what she said, the fact that it's what's the term that she used? Something at liberty or liberation.
Liberating, liberating
Liber
at liberty. Yeah.
liberating at liberty. So you've reached that point where you're testing and using your liberation at liberty, but it's not always all of your training. It's often a part of it. Even for people who are saying I'm a liberty trainer, there are so many times when you are still incorporating more guidance at different times so that you can have more focus, but you're bringing in these concepts of keeping your relaxation and your curiosity and your play and the horse's ability to give you feedback so that you can improve your connection with them.
Yeah, and I actually think that it's a, what would I call it? Like it's a pleasure to get to a point at which you can attempt liberty with your horse. Like it's not necessarily a place where you begin. I mean, it really depends on your outcome, but for me, I use liberty when I want to give my horse a choice to move away. So for example, Ellie was having a negative experience at the mounting block, and I had a lead on her, so she had to stay. And but it was just consistently not giving me positive feedback, like she was ears, facial expressions, biting at times. And so I did 2 sessions with her without a halter where she could leave if she wanted to. Like I didn't reprimand her if she walked away from the mounting block. I but I did make the mounting block a positive experience for her. So I did use treats and I didn't hop on her that day. Like there was no me putting my leg over, whereas I'd done a lot of that. And so, it was like she had the choice to leave. The mounting block was a positive place. Um, and I showed her that by, asking her to do some not hard work away from the mounting block. Like it wasn't pressure, just our normal stuff away from the mounting block. And then when I was like, okay, that was really good, we can go now and just chill out at the mounting block. I'm going to stand on it. You're going to get treats. So the mounting block then became a positive experience for her. And also, I could see whether she would come and stand there because if she didn't come and stand there, like that was giving me it. And it took the first session, it was like 40 minutes before she decided that standing anywhere near that thing was a good idea, you know? And then the next session, it was 5 minutes. And then ever since then, we've had a completely different relationship with the mounting block. It's not an issue. So it was obviously a good sessions that I did because it's never gone back. Um, with Jelly though, I've done all the work online with him because he was too food obsessed to like create a positive experience at Liberty. It would have created stress for him to use any food at that point, and he wasn't connected enough to his body. And so I didn't also have a space to try it in either. So there was a few reasons that I hadn't done it. But he knows all the things online. And like what Mel will say is if you can't get something at Liberty, you go back. You go back and you put them on the lead. And Kim will say the same thing. And you do it in a familiar state. So, and you also then have the head collar and the lead to help them create a postural connection. And it's more about the posture in this sense, like it's not about training them to do the thing at Liberty, because usually if they can't do the thing that you're asking them, it's probably because they're struggling with their balance, their posture, their stability. And so you're not putting them back on the lead because you're like trying to teach them to do the thing with more pressure. You're putting them back on the lead and think of it as I'm helping them create the right posture that I want to then transfer over to Liberty. And so Liberty is often the golden point, not the, so you've done all your work, you've got a connection with your horse,
It's not
they
one of the small building blocks. It is the culmination of the building blocks together.
yeah, and I think we've got to use it in a really mindful way like that to um like another example. When I put Jelly at Liberty the other day, every time on the right rein, he was heading away from me. So you could say, oh, like, well, he didn't want to connect with me. Okay, but when I put him back on the lead, he did exactly the same thing on that rein. So for me, it actually gave me information like that's his body posture on that rein. Like his body actually leads left when he goes right. And then I look back and I'm like, yeah, I know he has a right shoulder neck issue. He doesn't bend as well to the right. He often tilts his head a little to the left. So I know a lot of things about his posture. So it wasn't about him connecting with me. It was actually his physical state. And he had a swollen leg, a little bit of it. He had an ant bite on his leg. So it was actually his physical state that was making him lead away from me. And we can easily get caught in the, oh, he doesn't want to connect with me. Oh, like, you know, I'm not interesting enough. But he was just like, this is the way my body is leading me. So, like, I don't have it available to come back to you. So then I've got put him back on the lead and I'm working with him again. Like, well, if I'm at liberty, how can I help him in that situation? So I've taught him it back on the lead so
Yes.
that he now has a bit of a thing that I do to help him to turn back towards me when his body starts going away from me. So you're always creating information about, and the more you know about your horse's posture, when a horse gives you something at liberty, you're trying to understand it and make sense of it, not control it and shut it down or, train it. Like, okay, why do they do that? What can I learn from this? What can I change? Where do I need to go back to? What's the basics? Like, where's the steps that I need to go back here before I ask that again, rather than just adding more pressure to get the response that you want in that situation.
So what liberty means to you will obviously change how you can use the sessions. If you're making sure that your horse has choice and expression rather than just being, obviously, there's a level of, sometimes obedience that we want our horses to do for us, but in the setting, being able to say, if I'm not forcing you, what would you choose for yourself? Or if I was being, only having a little bit of guidance. So I suppose nearly always comes back to us.
Yep. And self-reflection.
Self-reflection.
Yeah. Because, for me, liberty is a test. Um, it's not a destination. Like it's like a test of my horse, what my horse thinks about me and how my horse feels in their body. And then at the moment, it's a test of can I create fun? Like for Jelly right now, he's a very he's got a cheeky side and it's really cute. Like he's got a cheeky side, but how do I bring that out in him, with me? Um, like he'll pick buckets up and throw them around and stuff like that. So it's like, yeah, how do I make work fun for him and fun for me where we're both like feeling joy and I'm a work person and I like I'm like, okay, we're going out, we're doing the postural training and today, I've got to work on his top line, his core function. I've got to make sure he's activating the right way and I want him to do these exercises and I've got to make sure they're correct. And like, we've done a few years of that now, like really focused training. And, now in my journey with him, it's about finding fun and finding play. So, and it's not about obedience in that situation and it's not about tricks. I don't want to teach him tricks. I want to engage him in fun things to do. And if that ends up being a specific thing that appears like a trick, I don't want him to be doing it for the sake of doing the trick. Like, I don't want him to pick up his leg and hollow out his back and lift his head and neck and go into a poor posture and do a Spanish walk if his posture is all bad and he's not having a positive experience with that thing. And that gets us on to, talking about tricks, because there's a lot of horses that do a lot of fancy tricks. Um, like rearing, Spanish walk, like fast, quick responses, like um seesaws and like all sorts of like amazing tricks. But anyone can train a trick. That's the way I see it. If you know how to train, you can train a trick. But not everyone can support their horse in doing whatever that thing is with the best possible biomechanics, posture, and feeling in their body. So that it actually feels really good for the horse. They're not just doing it because, like, I taught Henry a trick. I taught him to do Spanish walk years ago. He offers that trick to me every time that he smells a carrot. There is no postural good posture in that. Like, yeah, he's just offering me the trick because he's like, if I do this trick, I get a carrot. What I'm noticing with Jelly, coming at it from a different perspective now, he's not offering me things. Like, in the situation when we're working at Liberty, he'll offer me things. Like, he'll offer me a different posture, and he'll offer me a canter. But when we're to say in the yards, he's not trying to, when he smells treats on me, he's not trying to figure out, oh, what do I do for this treat? He's like just thinking and waiting for me. And that's a very relaxed, calm, connected horse.
Yeah.
He's like, I know you have treats. I'd really like them, but he doesn't offer anything. And I'm like, that's cool. That's actually cool that he doesn't offer anything, because he's just waiting for me to, like, well, when you ask, I'll do something, but like, I'd be happy with you just give me a treat. So,
Yeah.
yeah, if we just kind of talk about some of those things, those specific things that we've kind of seen as tricks, and how we could think
Into it to make sure
about,
that what
yeah,
does their body look like when you begin to ask? I suppose, um,
and what does it
it's,
involve them to have to do it well?
yeah, making sure that your horse has the fitness, or the strength. Like you said, they are, they need balance, stability, and a level of strength often to do those. Like there's quite a few movements that we can fast track.
Mm,
That things like piaffe, that is a high school movement. It's often used as a bit of a trick or a bit of a fast way to, I would say, feel like you've done something cool with your horse most of the time. And sometimes think that, okay, well, I'll use it as a strength exercise. But we want to go from functional posture and stability into strength. So, like we say, like using the same concepts of making sure you have function. So, is this available for you? Like if you're going to do a rear, for example, if you want a horse to be able to do a safe, controlled rear, then they really need to have a functional and strong core. They need to be able to lift through their thoracic sling and have the control both at at full extension when they're reaching up. And so that's going to be through their pelvis and hindquarter, their ability to load their abdominals, especially, and through their head and neck so that they're not just throwing it up to get basically a change in balance. Like if I just kind of throw myself back over my hindquarters, I've just shifted my balance and then I can kind of get up straight or maybe not even get straight, but just kind of come back and change my balance or my where my weight distribution is. It's not really an engagement and a lift through the back and come up. So you being able to say, okay, my horse does function in these ways. We have like good core activation and stability, and then we've built some strength, and then we've gone through the process of seeing how you do the exercise, and yes, you do it well and mindfully. Then that's a really appropriate time that you can say, yeah, I can ask you to rear, and sometimes you have to ask the question, when you do it, how do you do it? And sometimes you find that there's a weak point, and that's when you learn we have areas to improve on. Asking the question isn't illegal. You can always
Mm.
see what's available and what's there, but then learning about your horse, like you said, like learn more about their posture and then come back and work on the other things. And that might be the same for Spanish walk. If you if you work to make sure that your horse has good forelimb and rib cage stability, when one leg is
And
extended out
mobility. And
and
mobility.
mobility, and then the
Having to
ability to,
so be able to move along that rib cage.
yeah, yeah, and have, a level of connection, then and collection as well, then you're in a good position to have a functional, posturally sound Spanish walk, and your horse is likely to be mindful and in their body while they're doing it because they don't need to just kind of switch off and just throw a leg out.
Hmm. And I think I watched Mel do a really cool exercise with her horse with a pool noodle. And so because often people teach the Spanish walk with a tap, like a tap of the stick or um, stuff like that, but the horse is then learning to respond to the tap. Whereas she actually teaches it a bit more through like a curious response. So she helps them hit the pool noodle. And so it become she can control the height at which they lift. Um, and she only uses the pool noodle for this exercise, so it's not associated with it's not a face target, it's just a leg target. So she's using it as a leg target. And so she she also is very mindful about how the horse is, like what the back position is, making sure it's not in extension, that they're holding themselves in a really nice posture. So by them tapping the pool noodle as opposed to them lifting because they've been tapped with a whip, you can control it. And so she can ask just for a little reach, just a little, like, you know, half a foot off the ground kind of reach. And then as they get stronger and they develop that mobility, their thoracic sling, their ability to, sit on their hindquarters and shift their weight back, she can ask for it to become higher. And so it was really interesting because it was probably the best posture. Now her horse has been doing a fair bit of postural work in general, but it was the best posture I've seen for that exercise, with, to work up to a Spanish walk type exercise. So most of the time that I see it, there's brace. There's brace in the back, there's brace in the neck. They're not using their shoulder and scapula, like they're just kind of throwing the leg, and they do it quite quickly. They're lacking control. And so I loved that. I was like so excited by that and the way she did that. And we need to be more inventive like that to be able to help the horse maintain their best posture. It's like the same with piaffe. I often see it taught, and I don't know the best way to teach this yet, but I often see it taught by, the horse is getting tapped. And I maybe there's a better way. Like maybe, you can play with the trot well, I think you have to teach it online first and you need to help them. But like, then maybe they can feel your energy and you can play with your energy and your posture, and you're like you build the energy up within the horse that they're kind of quite excited, and then all of a sudden you're on the spot, and it just becomes a really positive experience. Like it's not a like it's not but you've worked with their posture, you've helped them find collection in the trot. They have established really nice transitions at liberty. They have different rhythms within their trot, like they're able to express themselves and come back and expand and contract within themselves before you even think about them doing any sort of piaffe type movement. So then all of a sudden when it's offered, it's like there's been a natural sequence to them getting to that point, but you don't have to, you're not creating a cue for them to do it. Like that comes when they find the movement, if that makes sense. Like they find the movement and then you add a cue to it when they've got it posturally as best as they can do. I think that would be quite cool. Like I'm not at that place yet. I think that's very advanced. But if in all the ways that we look at tricks. We can create postural awareness, mindfulness. If we're asking them to do a fast turn or a roll back or something, we give them a lot of space. Like Mel was talking about this last week too, like making sure that, you know, they're doing it within their own posture and control. So they're not doing it quicker than they can do it. So you give them a lot of space. You don't make them do it in a small, quick, you don't make them do it super fast. You like, if they need to take a bigger turn to keep nice balanced biomechanics, let them do the bigger turn. Like over time, it can become better. But if they learn how to have body awareness in everything that they do and they know that you're giving them time and space for that, it's amazing what that can create, like we just got to give them a little more time, a little more space, a little less pressure, a little more freedom.
Yeah,
Um,
definitely the how. How is it being performed? How are you training it? Are you avoiding stress? Are you giving them a place to relax? Are you really coming back to that foundation of liberty? Like it's genuine
yes,
liberty. You have,
yeah,
yeah,
genuine freedom to express themselves.
yeah, and tell you about themselves. And I also don't know if everybody sees, but I used to have the real idea that as soon as you stopped asking that horses would just not give you anything, that effort is, and I understand as well, horses being prey animals, they also, obviously it's individual. Some horses are um more energy conservative than others as well, but the more freedom you give, often sometimes the more effort you get as well, which is an interesting juxtaposition. But you have to try it and set the frame before you can receive that little gift as well.
Yeah, and one of the hardest parts of it is that you have to take out your ego and your expectation. And that's like, uh,
Yeah.
for me, the hardest part of liberty is just allowing it to be what it is. And that, all you can do is foster your own posture, your own mindfulness, your own connectedness, your own energy. That will draw your horse to you. But if you've got brace in your body, if you've got an expectation of how it should go that day, if you're um yeah, putting the pressure on that you have to get a certain thing a certain way, but the horse is just not there that day or that week, like we take a lot away from it. So for me, like my takeaway for this is that for me, liberty is a test. It's a test to see where I'm at with my horse. It's not always a training tool, like you can incorporate some stuff in there to, once they're engaged with you, then it becomes whatever you want it to be, but it's a real test of how they hold themselves in their own posture when they don't have you influencing them directly, how they respond to you, how they respond to things that you ask, and what comes up for you emotionally when your horse leaves, and doesn't do what you want them to do. So for me, it's an advanced um, thing. But again, there's many ways that it can be utilized. But I think we just have to ask ourselves all the time, why are we doing it? What's the benefit for the horse? And how am I showing up for my horse?
Absolutely.
Do you have any other takeaways that you want to impart?
No, I just think I've just we've motivated me to keep playing and do a bit more. I was just thinking I had a really wonderful time the other day. I was trimming Charlie's feet and he was a little bit uncomfortable. I think he's just got a little bit, his sacrum's playing up a little bit again. And every time I went to pick up his front feet, he likes to take one or two steps back to adjust into his favorite stance which is nearly always square, but sometimes the small adjustments of where his feet are help him. And I was just saying again and again to him, like, I want this foot. you can adjust yourself how you want to be, but I'm gonna need this in a moment. And he actually shuffled a bit like, oh, that wasn't right. I just have to get my foot right. And then he would give me his foot. And then he would give me the small ask, which is leaning on me to be like, I need my foot back.
Yeah.
Um, and then I would give it back. But then he would always give it to me again as soon as he adjusted.
It
He
feels
said, he would
comfortable.
yeah, yeah, he'll gift it back to, like he'll offer me his foot again when he's in the right spot. So just, yeah, I feel like we've motivated me to keep
Uh,
going, keep trying. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah. And know that our horses are constantly giving us feedback on the way that we ask and do things, and we need to be respectful of them and realize that whenever they're not doing what we ask them to do, it is not them being disrespectful, difficult, trying to make our lives difficult. It is just them communicating where they're at that day, and we really need to be much more mindful of that.
And I do love the saying that abuse of power is never wisdom. And I
Mm,
think with horses systemically, we can abuse the power we have over them because they're so vulnerable to our influence with pressure. Like it's so easy. They're a
right.
very easy to manipulate animal. And I don't think that's wisdom to abuse power, to yeah, and liberty is a great opportunity to give the power back.
Yeah, yeah, that's awesome. Okay, well, thank you for joining myself, Dr. Raquel Butler, and Sophie Vandenberg in today's podcast. Enjoy your horse time. Please subscribe to the Equine Functional Posture podcast so you don't miss our weekly episodes, and watch out for the next functional posture courses online coming up. Give us a 5-star rating so we can share more valuable insights. And we also love to hear your listener requests. So send us an email and yeah, we will explore those.
We'll see you in the next exciting episode.